A previously trusted ad blocker is now malicious.
Hey Tom, you have an interesting article and story about ad blocker and repercussions of what if it happens to be sold to someone else if it's not maintained properly. Could you elaborate a little bit on?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Ganesh. So it's a really interesting finding recently that came from Ars Technica that they identified based off of comments that another ad blocker developer actually commented on to a different tool these details. So it's a pretty interesting find. But basically, what happened was there was an ad blocker that's freely available on the extension store for Chrome, Firefox, and Microsoft Edge browsers. The ad blocker is called Nano ad blocker. It comes packaged with Nano Defender. Well, the original owner of this Nano tool decided to sell the software, sell access, and ownership of that tool. And within about a little over 2 weeks, that tool originally used to block advertisements was now actually modified by the new owners to inspect the user's machine to see if they're using developer tools in their browser to see if the ad blocker is doing anything, and then also using the user's machine to go and illicitly like posts on Instagram. So basically abusing their customer base to monetize it in ways that typically breach the terms and conditions of another service. In this case, Instagram. So pretty interesting use case. It sounds like basically the new owners are just trying to monetize their investments. Potentially, I haven't seen any follow up through it or anything like that yet, but most likely, something that has not been, approved by any sort of users that install this tool, this ad blocker on their browsers, and using their accounts that they're logged in with maliciously. So basically, the the Chrome version is one that was actually removed from their web store, and Chrome, the Google team removed it from there, being that it's breaching their terms and conditions of the browser itself. However, the Edge and Firefox versions are still available, but there's no confirmation if those ones are actually doing the same malicious activity yet, at least. So basically, at this point, it's potentially limited to Instagram and inspecting for some basic characteristics of what the user is doing on the machine. But having this software is a good example of basically allowing anyone to install and run code from your computer without your knowledge. It could be limited to likes, or it could be potentially stealing your banking credentials or something like that. So in this case, I think recommendations would be, obviously, if you're using Nano blocker, ad blocker, or Defender, be sure to remove those. And carefully evaluate your browser plugins and remove what's unnecessary, especially if you haven't used it in a long time. And maybe take a look at them and see what they're actually doing if you can. And if you're looking at doing the ad blocking stuff, consider doing it at the network level rather than at the client level through DNS requests. That's a little bit better approach nowadays. But I thought it was an interesting article. Ganesh, what do you think on this?
It's really, really interesting, actually. They explained very well. Even though they're not doing much malicious here, maybe they can expand into, like you said, maybe click tracking something, as well as maybe mining, anything. They could do anything in this. Basically, it might have been they're just prototyping it to see what the capabilities could be for the next one. That's one possibility. But for the second point is, how does a typical user notice this? Instead of that, you think, how about like maybe Google, maybe all these browser companies, maybe they should have some sort of mechanism. For example, when the ownership changed from owner A to owner B, maybe some sort of pop-up. Hey, dear user, maybe the ownership is changed. Maybe would you like to continue? Maybe it's better to check for any abnormalities. Maybe I didn't want to say malicious. Maybe abnormalities. I think that might drive the attention of the user. to pay attention, whether they really need it or not, maybe another opportunity to review. Basically, they need the browser add-on or not.
Yeah, that's a great point. That reminds me of kind of how, something on like the iOS operating system, if the app is asking for permissions for a certain capability, it makes it pretty obvious what that capability is. So, potentially browsers could incorporate that and include things like ownership changes. So yeah, thanks for your
Mhm.
insight. Kim, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so I think that with these ad blockers and any other extensions that you add to your browser, you need to do more research on it. I don't do much extension adding to my browsers, but you want to make sure the consumer needs to make sure that they uh, to research it first and before they add any ad blockers or malware blockers, whatever it may be, because they may exist with malicious software anyway.
Yeah, that's a great point. And even if it's not something like reviewing the actual code, I feel like an average person could take a look at potentially the terms and conditions that comes with a piece of software to see, what they're doing, what data they're collecting, to give you some insight into something like that. So you don't have to be, technically advanced to be able to do something like that. That's a great point. Thanks for your feedback.
I think
Cool.
also that the most interesting is even the people, maybe users may do the research initially, but in this scenario, they already did the research and they vetted it. They found, this is a good
Right.
add-on, maybe.
Hmm.
Well, it's basically kind of upgrade to whatever already they have it. Probably most likely a user may give oversight. Oh, okay, you already did the research. It's okay, let it go. That's where I think unique and novelness of this technique is really valuable.